All right, we're back, everybody, as we join together once again on a Monday, where we've had a kind of very interesting weekend weather-wise. As the cold that we first talked about back on the 13th of October, 13 days ago, is now in place across the heartland of the United States. It's made its way through Canada, and up in that area, it's beginning to be eaten away a little bit by some Chinook conditions, as most Arctic air masses in the middle part of this continent eventually do come to their demise via the Chinook coming off the higher terrain that for a time keeps it dammed in off to the east. But then once the flow turns around from the west, we get the downsloping, and then those places that were coldest yesterday end up turning around a huge swing temperature-wise. There's some 100-plus degree temperature recoveries on the record through Montana and parts of Colorado, as those Chinooks, even South Dakota, with the downslopes off the mountains in and around Rapid City, the Black Hills, have seen some incredible temperature recovery. We'll start with this. Let's go overseas, and we will look mostly or thusly at the aurora. This is played in real time, and I have seen a lot of aurora in my life, and I have never seen it this active. This is real time with the cell phone, just having a look outside. You can see the bottom of that curtain right through there where the blues, the violets are just dancing. The sun is wide open. The coronal holes are pointed at us. The Earth's magnetic field is down and will remain down for decades to come. So these aurora, these from Norway in the particular situation, this is the Big Dipper right there. As we pan over, you can actually see there's the handle, and then we'll see the dipper come into shape. You see, there it is. There it is. So he's got a pretty good camera to be able to absorb the light and pick it up. All right, great reset coming. We've been talking about it. We've been shown it. We've been walked into it on leashes guide you, but it's something we're going to talk a little bit about as an aspect of disclosure coming up on another perspective in an hour time. All right, latest operational run of the GFS suggesting that now Hurricane Zeta could be a solid hurricane at landfall in the central Gulf Coast. And if it gets there in the first place, the storm surge will be an issue. Think Nate back in 2017. There's the ice and snow happening in the southern plain states, but we're still anticipating that storm to arrive. And then this was Denver last night as the wind was blowing, the snow was falling. Ultimately, 8 inches was about typical. Other places about 10, which is close to what we had here in the San Luis Valley, even though out down here it was very, very late getting started, but it has snowed much today. We've got a little bit of sun outside now, but it's 27 degrees or about -3.5 Celsius. So cold enough that it's not going anywhere. Quick look at the thunder snow outside of the office of the National Weather Service in Amarillo, Texas. And boom, boom, boom. That's always a little exciting. And again, these snowfalls, these snow crystals are crystals. You get those swirling and you end up with some kind of electrical current, and it only stands to reason that lightning is going to be a result. The aurora, this time underneath it. This will happen in the northern hemisphere. This will happen in the southern hemisphere. We're all on this big rotating magnet called Earth, and things are happening. This is going to be a big, big thing. All right, Reed Tamir, the forever storm chaser up on the Continental Divide, and roads are icy, roads are slick. The dog's not so much a concern as you get up to Wellington east of Fort Collins, where they just a week ago, in fact, just 72 hours ago, were, coughing and wearing masks because of the fires. The fire situation has been greatly assisted, but it is so cold that the firemen have had to essentially winterize their gear, lest the pumps and the hoses and all of that hardware that they've, has kept everyone safe, be frozen. When you go from 70 degrees or 21, 22 Celsius down to -18 Celsius or about 0 Fahrenheit, it's a big abrupt change, and not all the equipment will survive that kind of disruption. There's some of the record lows. We will get an updated look at this across the western states, and some of these are records by monumental margins. This particular one from NBC Montana at 20 below in Bozeman, Montana this morning, whereas the old record low was 11 back in 2002. That is a smashing of the record by 31 degrees, nearly 30 degrees for Butte. So this is a situation with this kind of cold where there's a lot of trees that had to have prepared for winter. They got a couple of frosts ahead of time, but was it enough? Otherwise, you see the sap not being drawn out of the system and the trunks exploding, and then the tree has very little chance of recovery. So, for three weather stories, Zeta is the one that will have our attention as we get to probably Sunday night and into Monday, or even wow, even that long. Yeah, why am I thinking it's Friday? All right, towards the end of the week, about 72 hours out, we'll see Zeta making landfall some point in Louisiana, and still a continuation of the snow in eastern New Mexico at this point in time. All right, this is an interesting aurora forecast. This is from spaceweathernews.com. And this is where we have aurora that are already in place in the northern hemisphere. Down south, it's just as bright, with the midnight hour just passing. It looks like South Africa and coming up on the prime meridian. That's where the heat of the aurora is. So these will bulge out to the north, just as these aurora will be drawn southward as we see relevant filaments or other weaknesses within the magnetic field of Earth. It's going to be a very, very cool winter up north with all the aurora that we're going to see. All right, from the Interagency Fire Center, wildland fires activity was moderated over the weekend. One new large fire was reported in Arizona. Firefighters continue to work towards their containment goals of the east troublesome fire. This one in Colorado has been an epic, epic fire. They have gone from living in their homes to evacuation to are there any homes there, because there are many places where they haven't even gone in or been able to get in because first of fire, then of wind, and then of snow, to be able to go in and assess the situation for a lot of folks that have been evacuated and were just underneath 200,000 acres with that particular fire, which is right in here. All right, got this image up, guys, because I'm looking at all of the snow on the ground from North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, into Kansas, out into Colorado, through Wyoming. You get east of the Wind Rivers or south of the Wind Rivers, and the snow kind of thins out. Same story as you get in the Uinta Basin in Utah. The snow thins out, but that doesn't mean some of their central mountains also didn't have a little snow as well. But it is much, much colder off to the east, and this will help the drought situation undoubtedly. Is it going to be enough? I'm not quite sure, but I want to go to here. And these are some of the nighttime lows. Actually, this was this morning's forecast lows, and we'll go to tomorrow's, where Cheyenne's still at about 6 below, Scottsbluff at 11 below zero, 16 in Burley, Idaho. So there's just a lot of very, very chilly lows in place. And as far as cold highs, this, places that did not even get above 15 on the Front Range of Colorado, 17 in Goodland, Kansas, even into central and western Texas, highs not climbing above the 30s for the afternoon readings. And for some of these locations, this was the first freeze so far of the season. All right, still managed to get to 104 at Rio Grande Village, Texas yesterday. And look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 locations at 22 degrees below zero, or, well, maybe not colder, but a couple of spots in Wyoming, Montana, and Utah taking those honors. And what we're looking at is Zeta down into the deep into the, I guess it's the Western Caribbean would be the best place to call this, off the coast of Mexico, the Yucatan. But Zeta still as a minimal hurricane, 80 miles an hour, anticipated to strengthen as it kind of shoots the gap between the Yucatan and western Cuba, and then probably weaken as the waters are enough cooler as we approach the coast. We've had some storms up here already. We've got the cold. Let's just go to the surface map right here, because I want to see where we are as the cold air. No, we've got a stationary front here along the Gulf Coast, and then a warm front as the south winds are trying to pick up back up, but it's cold. I mean, this Arctic high extends all the way from Nebraska through Wyoming, and then up into the Pacific Northwest, where frost and very chilly readings in Puget Sound, on through the day. But what this does is these highs set up across the Great Basin is it sets up a very, very strong pressure gradient through these gaps in California. This is where the fire danger, the fire risk, the risk of explosive fire development and rapid movement will be in California, as this very strong Santa Ana and offshore flow, takes place. That's what's going to happen. Snows in New Mexico, southern New Mexico, some showers, and then a little bit of ice This ice underway south of Oklahoma City across Tulsa, and they've had maybe a quarter of an inch, but this is the first frozen precip of the season. So what a way to begin. Not even a little bit of snow to let people know it's there, but it's just this thick coating of ice. That ice is on trees, it's on antennas. That ice is big, and undoubtedly we'll get some pictures for you come tomorrow. And the snow still hanging out in New Mexico, so that's good. They could all of these places out west need this precipitation. This is a rather slow moving event. The deep low, let's go back to the beginning. The deep low swinging through the southwestern states, and then just kind of hanging around, scooping up a ton of moisture in Texas, Oklahoma. So we'll see some very healthy precip totals. Texas, Oklahoma, on top of the snows that have already fallen across Nebraska. So this is going to aid those farmers in a really, really great way. Let me go to precip here instead of dealing with snow, because then we can be more inclusive and talk about the whole area and run out some totals. So these folks in Oklahoma and Kansas, they're on the edge of the drought. The drought is definitely severe to the west, but we're looking at 1, 2, 2.5, some 3-inch totals. So this goes a long way to really assisting agriculture and some drought-stressed operations and trees and shrubs and so forth as we begin to put all the vegetation to bed. But even over the course of this next 2 weeks, there's not much that happens from Northern California through the central Northern Rockies, the Great Basin, and out, all the way out across the Northern Plains. It's dry as she goes through about the 11th of November. We'll see that little injection of moisture from Zeta that'll hit, probably eastern Louisiana. At least that's where it's modeled to go now. But the biggest, heaviest precipitation is the copious amounts falling along the British Columbia Rockies, and a lot of Pacific water coming in. They hit 14,000 foot peaks. Most of that water comes out. Good to see you guys on there. We are at Zeta. Look at that. We're deep into the Greek alphabet. We've got a ways to go. I would imagine that we'll probably have 2 more storms. The models are kind of I don't want to say inconclusive, but they do bring about another one, though. At least the one this morning did. Let's see if this spins it up. Hits it across Cuba here, but then we've got a deep trough swinging in, so that may or may not turn into an event. But nonetheless, this ridge that's been in place through the western states, that ridging shape just doesn't really want to let go. It'll take a beating, and then it just bounces right back up. 594 heights right there. That's midsummer. So where we have seen snow, where we have had the record cold temperatures, it may last another 3 days. Not the record cold, but the cool weather, and then we'll go through a process of melting it all off, getting that moisture in the back in the soils, and then a good chunk of it, because it's dry this time of year, will be lost to evaporation. I'm ready for a bit of snow here. Are you, Karen? Are you? Well, it's La Nina, so if that analogy is going to remain in place, then the East tends to do fairly well. It is not a guarantee. It is not a 1-to-1 correlation. And I have to default some of that to being some geoengineering, that we can play with the weather a bit. So what may have been a classic La Nina setup has to deal and has to endure some kind of interruptions from the geoengineering aspect. Florida needs to take one for the team. Yeah, give it to Florida, right? Lafayette's had enough. Louisiana has been just brutalized this summer by the number of storms. The sheer number have just been epic. All right, I want to talk about disclosure coming up on Another Perspective at the top of the hour, 45 minutes or so. It'll be at least a 2-part show. We will be able to talk about the basics of disclosures in the next, between 6 and maybe 6:35, 6:40 here, and then we'll pick it up on Wednesday. But there's so many aspects to, if we were to get a true disclosure, something that me standing, in my coming up on mid-50s and seeing the Jetsons presented to us as a kid, that how in the intervening 5 decades have we not had this come to fruition? We've got AI, we've got beginnings of developing robots, but there's a lot of other tech that were tantalizing, that the cartoon people like The Simpsons presented us because it was easy enough to figure out that we would eventually end up there. It's just, where's it been? Where is this disclosure? When is that going to happen? Will it be all at once, or do we have to wait for Hollywood to present disclosure a movie at a time? And then when does it actually begin to make an effect in our lives? So I want to talk about disclosure up at 6 o'clock, and I want your feedback because we all have things where we would like to see the secrets revealed. And is humanity mature enough to use these texts in the best possible way? Have we grown up enough? Or do we need to have a wholesale change of leadership before this kind of technology is released to the public? So that's where I want to go at 6 o'clock. It's a topic that has fascinated me probably since I could read sci-fi as a kid. All right, we'll talk about disclosure coming up at 6 o'clock on another perspective, and after that, we will round up all the record lows that happened across the states from this particular Arctic outbreak tomorrow on Scott's Weather. All right, see you in about 45 minutes. Have a great night, and I'll go change. Catch you soon. Keep looking up.